All righty.
Hello. Hey, everyone. So we have Nate Moore. He is from the VA Northern Indiana Healthcare System. Excuse me, he is a United States Army veteran from 1989 to 1993. He's a Gulf War veteran in 1990. He's been here at the Northern Indiana Healthcare System for 19 years. Woohoo! He's a peer support supervisor. He is on the suicide prevention team, the suicide prevention outreach, and he is the super. I said super, so I'm just going to add that to your title. Super suicide prevention outreach coordinator, and he's a Chicago Bears fan. So we won't dislike him or
Absolutely.
anything for that, but that's okay. No, lots of Chicago Bears fans up here in this area as well. So thank
Yes,
you
it
for
is.
coming today, Nate. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this presentation. I do it all the time. We try to spread as much awareness as we possibly can. So I'm all over the state. Our team is spread out over northern Indiana. We have Les LeBron, who is our coordinator. He is the he makes the most money, and he would kill me for saying that. But um, Les is our coordinator. We have Jen Price is a social worker up in South Bend. In Fort Wayne, we have Amy Solero. We have Shaylin Bailey. We have and that's who we have in Fort Wayne. And then here in Marion, we have Stephanie White. We have Lindsay Bennett, Dina Barnhart, and myself. So spread out over northern Indiana, and we get together every morning, and we do a huddle, and we talk about our veterans who are struggling with suicide ideation. Um, and I'm the outreach coordinator, so we just try to get out and spread as much awareness and talk about what we need to do as a society to curb our veteran suicide numbers. So can you see my screen? Can you see the SAVE training?
Yes.
All
And today
righty.
is actually World Suicide Prevention Day,
It
right?
is
Yeah,
absolutely. September
amazing.
is yes, and the month of September is Suicide Prevention Month. So really busy. A lot of activities going on. Uh, the VA tries to get out and do as much awareness in the community. We've done CIT training for several police departments. We do crisis intervention training for um, South Bend, Elkhart, state troopers. We've done EMT trainings. So we just try to get out and share this information, our SAVE training, how we deal with veterans who are struggling with suicide ideation. This is a national training, so any VA you go to, it's going to be exactly the same. If you go to the VA in New York, or you go to the VA in California, or Chicago, or Indiana, this training is exactly the same. So all the VAs are sharing and using this particular training. All right, I guess I can go ahead and get started. I like to say, before we begin, suicide is an intense topic for some people. So if the topic is kind of hard for you to digest because of personal scenarios or situations, be free to log off. I understand it. Some of us may have had some suicide history or know somebody that has attempted suicide. Um, and we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. 988 is a suicide and crisis lifeline. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure everybody on this panel does. 988 is a national suicide hotline number. The first prompt will say if you're a veteran, press one, and once you press one, it turns into a veteran crisis line. So it's 24 hours, 7 days a week uh, for all um, who needs it. You don't have to be a veteran; it can be a family member, and they also talk um, to veterans and family members of veterans about other things that are not pertain to suicide, if that makes sense. You may have some questions. You may want to get that veteran some help who is not suicidal. So, but you can still call that particular number and try to get as much information as you can. So a veteran crisis line is multi-serving, serves multiple purposes. Okay, we're going to talk about objectives. We're going to talk about facts about veteran suicide, some common myths and realities. Um, Suicide prevention is forever evolving and changing and growing. So we're going to dispel some myths and talk about some realities, and then we'll get into the S.A.V.E training, and then we'll kind of point towards some resources that are available for veterans who are struggling with suicide ideation or family members. All right, facts about suicide. Suicide is a national issue with rising rates in the general population. For every death by suicide, approximately 135 individuals are impacted. So it's got that ripple effect. We have loved ones and people that care about us and people who know us. So one person dying by suicide has an impact of 135 people outside of that particular suicide. So thought I'd point that out. Suicide is a complex issue with no single cause. Suicide is often the result of complex interaction of risk and protective factors at the individual, community, and societal levels. Risk factors are characteristics that are associated with an increased likelihood of suicidal behavior. Protective factors can help offset risk factors. And to prevent veteran suicide, we must maximize protective factors while minimizing risk factors at all levels throughout communities nationwide. I've been with suicide prevention for almost 10 years. And when I started getting information, I worked in substance abuse for a decade, um, came to suicide prevention, started doing outreach. Um, and originally, when I got on board, it was like 20 to 22 veterans were taking their life per day in this country. And I could not believe that. That was just so disheartening. I thought it was a misprint when I first read it, but at that particular time, 20 to 22 veterans were taking their life by suicide each day. Out of the 20 to 22, 16 of them were not enrolled in any VA. So I think that was the major push, getting our veterans enrolled into the VA, making sure that when they do start to have suicide ideation, that we have a history of working with them and we know them. We've made contact with them. We made contact with their family, which makes the process a little bit easier. If we don't know that veteran is not enrolled in the VA, we don't know they're struggling with suicide ideation. We have no history with them. It's really, really difficult to get them the support that they need. So enrollment is huge. It's also a really, really big program. We want to try to get as many veterans as we possibly can enrolled in our VA system. And then also suicide prevention is probably one of the top programs in any VA that you go to. It's going to get a lot of attention. So once again, getting those veterans enrolled in the VA and having the opportunity to get a history with them, um, and then making sure that we have contact with their families, their loved ones, people around them. The last thing we want is a veteran isolating, and nobody has talked to them, nobody's seen them, nobody's heard from them. That's the last place we want to be when we are dealing with a veteran who's struggling with suicide ideation. All right, so we're going to talk about some risk factors and protective factors. Once again, we just talked about the risk factors and the protective factors being huge in dealing with a veteran struggling with suicide ideation. So some of the risk factors are prior suicide attempts, mental health issues, substance abuse, access to lethal means. We'll kind of get into that in a minute. Once again, I worked in substance abuse, the SART program here at the VA in Marion, and for 10 years, a lot of the veterans that we see on our caseload who are struggling with suicide ideation are veterans that I know from substance abuse treatment programs. So when you start to talk about a veteran having mental health issues, substance abuse issues, they're probably going to be struggling with some suicide ideation at some point. So all those things kind of go hand in hand. Access to lethal means, we'll kind of get into that in a minute. Recent loss, Legal or financial challenges, relationship issues, unemployment, homelessness. That's a pretty tough list. Anybody, you know, dealing with those two or three of those issues are going to have a difficult time. So we try to turn those risk factors into protective factors. Um, Access to mental health care. That's why enrollment is so big. We try to get our veterans into the VA, get them enrolled, make sure we get them have access to mental health care. Um, we've seen a surge of veterans enrolling in the VA. Prior to that, it was kind of difficult to get a veterans. Most veterans. I was one of those veterans that did not utilize the VA system for 10, 15 years after I discharged from the military. And I blame my brother because my brother is retired Air Force and he should have informed me about the VA. But he had no knowledge of the VA either. Just in depth knowledge and knowing all that the does. He didn't know. So uh, it was 15 years after I discharged that I was introduced to the VA system. So a lot of veterans are uninformed, they don't know. And then you have a percentage of veterans who have had bad experiences at the VA or difficult experiences at the VA. They don't trust the VA. They don't want to come to the VA for help. The VA can be a very overwhelming, very difficult place to navigate. So being overwhelmed, being intimidated are other reasons why some veterans don't utilize or have not utilized the VA system. So we're trying to change that. A sense of connectiveness, problem solving skills, sense of spirituality, mission or purpose, physical health, employment, social and emotional well being. We try to turn these risk factors into protective factors. One of the selling points that I like to use when I'm talking to veterans is, we're talking about one of the largest healthcare systems in the country. Can it be difficult? Absolutely. Can it be intimidating? Like I just said, overwhelming? Absolutely. Um, so we're trying to get better at that and we're trying to make it user friendly so veterans can come in and get the help that they need. All right. Just talked about access to lethal means. What does that mean? A way that a veteran uh, takes their life, dies by suicide, or attempts to die by suicide. Most veterans, a large percentage of veterans, are have access to firearms. You just do. I'm a gun owner, and most veterans that I know own firearms. So it's extremely, extremely important that when we have a veteran who is struggling with suicide ideation, we find out whether or not that veteran has a firearm. The last place we want to be is a veteran struggling with suicide ideation and have access to a firearm. As we look at this U.S. veteran and suicide methods, we can see that 72% of veterans use a firearm when attempting suicide. Poisoning is 7%, 14% suffocation, and 5% all others. Any non veterans, adults, 52% use firearms, 12% poisoning, 26% suffocation, and then 8% is other. So 72% is a large piece of that pie. Most veterans that I know and most veterans that we come in contact with, we want to make sure whether or not they have firearms. Now, we don't want to completely take those. We cannot completely take those firearms away from that veteran, but we can have them removed by family members, by the police department, uh, significant other, until that crisis is over. Once again, we do not want a veteran to have access to a firearm while they are struggling with suicide ideation. Excuse me. So, what does lethal mean? Safety and content of suicide prevention. Safe storage of lethal means is any action that builds time and space between a person with thoughts of suicide and a suicide method. So, once again, if we take that opportunity to get that firearm away from that veteran while they are struggling with suicide ideation, we built in space and time. They don't have access to that. And usually, if you take away a method, a veteran usually, a person usually uses as a method of suicide, they usually don't go on to find another way. So being able to get that firearm away from that veteran at that particular time, or any method that a veteran may use to take their life, uh, they usually don't go on to find another way. So effective and lethal means safety education and counseling is a collaborative and veteran-centered. It respects the important role that firearms and medication may play in a veteran's life and is consistent with their values and their priorities. So we can see how important building in time and space uh, in a person of thoughts of suicide and suicide methods. Um, 47% said it took less than an hour between their decisions to attempt suicide and the actual attempt. 24% said it took less than 5 minutes. So, as we look at this chart, it kind of tells us and gives us an example of how short that time is that a veteran is struggling with suicide ideation at that particular time. 71% say less than an hour, less than 20 minutes, 48%, less than 5 minutes, 24%. So, how critical it is it that we are able to uh, get those firearms away from that veteran until the suicide ideation passes. As we can see, firearm injuries, 85 to 90% fatal. All other methods combined, 5% fatal. So, the time between when a person decides to die by suicide and when they act on a decision is very short. And this is a 2005 study showed that 71% of attempters estimated that the process took less than an hour. So, building time and space, giving an opportunity to take away some of those methods that a veteran may use uh, in a crisis situation. All right, lethal means safety works. Reducing access to lethal suicide methods is one of the few population interventions that show to decrease suicide rates. About 90% of the people survive a suicide attempt do not go on to die by suicide. If we collaborate with veterans ahead of time to help them survive a crisis, we've likely prevented suicide for the rest of their lives. So that's the whole objective. Um, there was a study when they built the Golden Gate Bridge back in the 1930s. I may be wrong with that time frame, but um, people were using the bridge to jump off and die by suicide. So they built barriers along the side of the bridge um, so that you couldn't jump off. Um, and the suicide rate went down tremendously in that area in San Francisco. So just by taking away a method a person veteran usually uses to die by suicide, they usually don't go on to find another way. All right, suicide is preventable. Some common myths versus realities. We've all heard this, even though suicide is a major public health concern. There are a lot of common myths and misinformation about suicide. Let's talk about some of these. Having accurate information about suicide makes it easier to reach out to others and help them. So, the first one, people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention. We've all heard that. Um, I know I have. It's pretty common when you start to talk about people who are struggling with suicide ideation. A lot of people feel like they're just seeking attention. And the reality of that is not, no matter how casually or jokingly said, suicide threats should never be ignored and may indicate serious thoughts of suicide. Someone who talks about suicide provides others with an opportunity to intervene before suicidal behavior occurs. So if I'm sitting in my office and I've got an appointment with a veteran and they're talking about suicide, whether it be intense or they're just jokingly talking about it. I can't let that veteran just get up and walk out of my office. I must make sure that that veteran is evaluated by our clinical team. What do I mean by clinical? I'm talking about our psychologists, our psychiatrists, social workers, RNs, and nurse practitioners. Um, I must get that veteran to one of those individuals. Since I work here in suicide prevention, I'm surrounded by social workers and psychologists and psychiatrists that I know uh, will drop everything they're doing if you come to them and you tell them that you have a veteran who is suicidal or have made suicidal comments. All right, the only one who can help someone who is suicidal is a mental health counselor or a therapist. And the reality of that is, special training is not required to safely raise the subject of suicide. Helping someone feel included and showing genuine heartfelt support can also make a big difference during a challenging time. So I'm not a clinician. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's in social work. I'm not an RN. I'm not part of the clinical team, but I do have a responsibility as a VA employee. If I'm having a conversation, dialogue with a veteran, and I'm able to identify some of the warning signs, a veteran may be suicidal, it's my responsibility to help that veteran and get that veteran the attention they need and get them to our clinical team members. RN, psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, nurse practitioner. Those are the people who can do a further evaluation um, and make sure that that veteran is in a safe space. All right, our VA S.A.V.E training. Um, the VA is really, really big on acronyms. This one is no different. VA S.A.V.E training. Uh, VA S.A.V.E training teaches community how to help veterans at risk for suicide. So we do a lot of these. We go out into the community and we talk with as many people as we possibly can about how to evaluate and help a veteran who's struggling with suicide ideation. I remember the very first S.A.V.E training I did was in Elkhart at the Lerner Theater, big, beautiful theater. Some of you may be familiar with that area. And it was the Elkhart State Troopers, South Bend State Troopers, um, Elkhart Police Department, and Elkhart um, State Troopers. Both State Troopers, both police departments for the city of Elkhart and the city of South Bend. So they were doing a crisis intervention training, and they wanted the VA to come in for a couple of hours and talk about how we deal with veterans who are struggling with suicide ideation. So it was a team of four of us. Um, we're talking about over 300 law enforcement, just a massive, massive facility. Very, very intimidating crowd. A lot of the brass was sitting up front with the Mountie hats on, and I was scared to death. I wanted to run out of the building. Nervous. This was my first VA training, and two of the social workers decided that they didn't want to present. And I don't. I was like, yeah. So instead of us having a 30-minute presentation, it turned into an hour presentation for me and an hour presentation for Dustin Knight, who is the VA police commander. So it was my time to get on board, get up and present. And I'm scared to death. My knees are shaking. And I said, I don't know why, but something told me to tell a joke to start off. Ease the crowd, tell a joke. So I said, the last time I seen this many law enforcement, you guys were chasing me. And nobody laughed. Nobody laughed. I mean, it was dead silent. And I just wanted to run out of the building and get in my car and drive back to Marion and drive to my home and get in bed and pull the covers over my head. I was, so I was able to make it through that particular S.A.V.E training. And I said to myself, if I can make it through that, I should be pretty good. Nothing was as or has been as intimidating as that. So, um, this training will help you act with care and compassion if you encounter a veteran who is in a suicidal crisis. S. Signs of suicidal thinking should be recognized. A. We want to ask the most important question of all. V. We want to validate that veteran's experience. And then E. We want to encourage treatment and expedite getting help. So those are the acronyms of our S.A.V.E training, and we'll kind of get into that. Um, S, learn to recognize these warning signs. If I'm talking with a veteran and we have a one-on-one, and I can recognize some hopelessness in this veteran, feeling like there's no way out, anxiety, agitation, sleeplessness, or mood swings, feeling like there's no reason to live, rage, anger, engaging in risky activity without thinking, increased alcohol or drug use, withdrawing from family and friends. These are the signs that kind of give me an indication that this veteran may be struggling with some suicide ideation. The presence of any of the following signs require immediate attention. So if they're coming out and they're just openly talking about hurting them or killing themselves, looking for ways to die, talking about death, dying, or suicide, self-destructive or risk-taking behavior, especially when it involves alcohol, drugs, or weapons, then that's kind of a no-brainer. I don't have to think long and hard about that. I can kind of right off the top understand and realize that this veteran is in trouble and needs immediate help. So, A, ask the question. Know how to ask the most important question of all. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It's a difficult question to ask, but I would rather have that difficult conversation and a few minutes of uncomfortability than to let that veteran walk out of my office knowing that that veteran was in trouble or knowing that that veteran may be struggling with some suicide ideation. Um, so, being able to identify some warning signs now that I've seen or heard the warning signs, and it's my responsibility to ask that question. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Some do's or don'ts of asking the question. I do want to ask the question if I've identified the warning signs. Once again, we went through the S and being able to look and see and talk. And if I'm identifying some of the things that we talked about in the prior slide, then I want to ask that question. You know, if I'm sitting there with my with a veteran and we're talking about my beloved Chicago Bears and how they really looked uh, difficult Monday night against the Vikings, then I may not want to. I may not want to ask that question if I'm not identifying some warning signs. I do want to ask a question. The question in a natural way that flows with the conversation. So I certainly don't want to rush into anything. I don't want to embarrass that veteran. I don't want to make it difficult. I want to make sure that there's some trust that trust that veteran can talk to me freely uh, and understand that I'm trying to get in a position to help as much as I possibly can. So I want to ask a question in a natural way that flows with the conversation. What I don't want to do, I don't want to ask a question as if I'm looking for a no answer. So if I say, you're not thinking about killing yourself, are you? Then most veterans are going to say no. And I don't want to wait and ask a question when somebody's halfway out of the door or down the hall. I want to give that veteran as much, um, what's the word I'm looking for, confidentiality, and make sure that it's just me and them, and they have the security and the freedom to answer that question as honestly as they possibly can. All right. V, we want to validate that veteran experience and talk openly about suicide, be willing to listen and allow the veteran to express their feelings. The more that veteran is talking, the more information that I'm gathering, and the more information that I have, the better place that I'm in order to help that veteran. So I want to let them talk as much as they possibly can. I want to recognize that the situation is serious. I don't want to pass judgment, and I want to reassure the veteran that help is available. We're going to do everything we can to get you in a situation to get some help. I've been in suicide prevention once again for almost a decade, and I've heard veterans talk about ending their life for so many different reasons. And sometimes you're talking to a veteran and you come across a situation where the reason they're upset and the reason why they're in crisis uh, seems to be a very solvable situation, if that makes sense. But for whatever reason, that veteran cannot put the pieces together. So, judging someone or trying to understand why they are in crisis. Uh, it's not important. What is important is that we get them as much help as we possibly can uh, to help them get through a difficult time. All right, E, we want to encourage treatment and expedite getting help. What should I do if I think someone is suicidal? I don't want to keep the veteran suicide behavior a secret. The more people I have on this caseload, the more people that know, the more people involved, the better. So I want to let my entire team know. I want to let uh, anybody and everybody that I can. Once again, the last place that we want a veteran to be is isolation, and nobody's communicating with them and nobody's talking to them, and uh, they're not answering their phone, and none of their family members or loved ones have seen them. We don't want a veteran that's struggling with suicide ideation at that point. We want to make sure that there's full communication by multiple people, uh, and we have the opportunity to get this veteran as much help as we possibly can. All right, when talking with a veteran at risk for suicide, I want to remain calm. If I'm discombobulated and I'm upset, and it's going to make the situation really, really difficult. Open body language signals interest in the other person and in the conversation. Maintain a relaxed posture, lean in close with and use direct eye contact are some of the things that you can use to make sure that that veteran is seeing you and hearing you and on board with the conversation and what's going on. I want to listen more than I speak. Once again, if that veteran is doing the talking, then he's giving me or she's giving me information, and that's what I need. I want to act with confidence, uh, maintain eye contact. Maybe something that we don't think about every day, but I get so many veterans. And the biggest complaint is, Nate, I went to see the psychologist or psychiatrist or social worker. They never looked me in my eye one time. They were typing on the computer the whole time. A lot of times veterans don't understand they're putting in notes, but as you have dialogue with them, but eye contact is big. Um, so that's one of the biggest complaints I get. Eye contact. I want to act with confidence. I don't want to argue. I want to use open body language. Limit my questions and let the veteran do the talking. Once again, I can't emphasize that enough. The therapeutic value of letting that veteran talk about what's going on, uh, how we got to this point, and what we need to do to move forward to get them as much help as we possibly can. And the only way I can do that is if I let that veteran talk and get as much information as I possibly can. Use supportive and encouraging comments and be honest and let the veteran know that there are no quick solutions, but help is available. All right, the VA SAVE training, once again, signs of suicidal thinking should be recognized. A, I want to ask the most important question of all. V, validate that veteran's experience and encourage treatment and expedite getting help. Um, Once again, that training is available any VA you go to. And we try to get out in the community and spread that information as much as we can with stand downs, crisis intervention trainings, uh, motorcycle shows, wherever we can go where we know there's going to be veterans involved, we're going to be there. We get information from the community. We have two amazing uh, community engagement partnership staff members, and that's what they do. They go out in the community and they try to build relationships with the community and the VA so we can better serve our veterans. They come up with so many amazing events for us to go out and spread information and talk to veterans, whether they're struggling with suicidal ideation or not. We want to be able to have access and just spread as much awareness as we possibly can in the event down the road that a veteran starts to struggle. Um, and it may not be them, they may know another veteran that's struggling, someone in their family, someone in their neighborhood, in their community, and they want to know how to help that veteran. Um, we're going to go down to some resources really quickly. Um, 988, press 1, Veteran Crisis Line, or you can text 838-255. The Veteran Crisis Line is huge. It's been around forever. and it has grown tremendously. There are veteran crisis line centers all over the country. I think when I first started at the VA, there were just a few in the country. Now the numbers have grown so much. I'm not even 100% sure how many veteran crisis line centers there are across this country, but that whole movement has grown tremendously. Um, veteran crisis line locator, and just a lot of different resources. I think Elizabeth has this slide, and if you need information on here, there are a ton of different resources and opportunities um, to help veterans who are struggling with suicide ideation. So I had a short video, but it won't play. I've tried, I've tried it in the past, and I'm not going to try it today because I tried it earlier and it won't work. So, anybody got any questions that I can answer?
Nate, that was awesome. I'll pause again so people can ask questions, but I have a comment. Just so everyone knows, the VA can provide free gun locks for veterans.
Absolutely.
So if you need free gun locks, I'm going to drop in the chat. There's an email address for the Indianapolis Suicide Prevention Team. Nate, maybe you guys have one as well, but I'll
Hmm.
drop in the email address. You guys just send the veteran's name, address, how many gun locks they need, and they will ship those out right away. So don't hesitate to request those. I'll send out a picture so you guys can kind of see what those look like. And then also, I'm going to drop in the chat a copy of the VA safety plan. It's just a really nice, I think it's 2 pages, where if you have a
Hmm.
veteran who's in crisis, you can just like on the spot do a safety plan with them. You guys probably have your own versions of that, but ours might be a little more tailored to veterans. So feel free to use it.
And then
Absolutely.
also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
was just gonna plug for you also, Liz, your psychologist.
Yes, thank you. VA offers mental health support to veterans in the community. Not everyone on this call is hospice affiliated, but most of you are. If you have a veteran who's homebound on hospice, we can coordinate virtual mental health services for them. So I'll drop the flyer in for that as well. Thanks, Marty.
I do have the availability in Northern as well, but it's a different way than it was previous. Our psychologist left, and so it's doable here in Northern, but it's just a little bit different. So just so you know, you can reach out to us if you feel like you need help for your veteran on hospice or palliative care, as they're going through that.
Hey, Liz, those of us outside the VA system can't open that safety plan, so we'll have to send that out in a different
Okay.
format.
Okay, thank you.
so yeah, I'd like to thank Elizabeth and Marty for giving me this opportunity. I love helping veterans. They say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I've been at this VA for 19 years, and this VA saved my life. I was a veteran, homeless, living in Chicago, came back from the Gulf War, and my life started to deteriorate slowly because I was dealing with unaddressed mental health issues, started um, drinking and drugging. So anytime you have some unattended mental health issues and you start to drink and drug, that escalates things really, really quickly. So my life fell apart quickly. I wound up homeless in the streets of Chicago. Suicide was on my mind all the time. It was a daily thought process. 2007, um, 2006, I think it was, I came into this VA as a patient. I did 90 days in the substance abuse treatment program, and there was a psychologist who has since retired, Dr. Maggie Wyman. She said, Nate, I want you on my team. I don't have anybody on my team. that's got lived experience. I have some amazing psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers, but I need somebody that knows what it's like to struggle with a drug and alcohol addiction and mental health issues. And she hired me. um, and she saved my life. She did. Each and every day I was able to come to work around some of the top psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers that work here at this VA. Some of them have moved on and retired, but having that access uh, to those amazing people, and not only that, uh, having the interaction of dealing with veterans who were struggling with similar issues like myself was huge. So it wasn't just the staff, it was the veterans who were coming to the VA and to the substance abuse treatment program. I had the opportunity to learn from them. Um, it changed my life. It was a life changing experience. Um, so I can go on and on and on talking about that particular stage of my life. Now I'm in a position to give back and help veterans who uh, may be struggling with mental health issues, suicide ideation, drug and alcohol addiction, homelessness. So when a veteran says to me, you know what, Nate, you don't understand, I say, I do. I do understand. I understand exactly what you're going through, and recovery is possible. Is it easy? No. It's probably the most difficult challenge that you're going to have in your life. But at the same time, this has been the most rewarding journey that I've ever been in my entire life. It changed my life, gave me the opportunity to be a father, gave me the opportunity to be a grandfather, to be a um, productive member of my family, who now um, need me and always has needed me and needed me to be in a state of mind where I can be an asset. So I owe everything to this VA. It has been an amazing journey. Once again, I've been here 19 years, so the end is near. I don't know when. I've got more time behind me than I do in front of me, but there's so many amazing people that I had opportunity to work with, not only at this VA here in Marion and Fort Wayne and South Bend, but also in the community. I've made so many friends in the AA and the NA community, self-help programs throughout this community. So I've been so blessed and so fortunate to be able to have this opportunity, because I know a lot of veterans don't. Um, So we're trying to work really hard to give them as much access and awareness as we possibly can.
Well, thank you, Nate. Your message today is so much more powerful given your experience. So we thank you for sharing your personal story, and also thank you for your service. I think a couple things that stood out to me, or at least one thing that really shocked me, was when you said 16 out of 22 veterans who die by suicide were never engaged in the Veterans Health Administration. So
Absolutely.
I think that's an area where we can help. And for those of you out there working with veterans who are not connected, or you're not sure if they're connected, reach out to palliative care. Me and Marty, we will confirm if they're enrolled, and if they're not, walk you through that process to try to help get them connected. And I will post on the follow-up post on our website from today. We'll have the slides, all the links that were shared today, as well as copies of VA safety plans if you guys want to use that. So thanks again, Nate. That was wonderful.
Thank
Thanks
you,
you guys
Nate.
for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.